we're going to do some review and then just play some Ignition games. Make sure I have nothing incriminating open, at least no more than usual. Yeah, so just have like the clairvoyant hands. Downloaded. Nice thing if you have like Ignition card catcher, and then you're just like downloading the hands after the fact. You get you can like very easily swap between them and just like hold a manager or whatever in the same database. So it makes review of like big hands I tag really easy to find the day after. So yeah, just gonna look at the like above 10 big blind pots. I'm not gonna get too much into other stuff, and just generally getting a snapshot of what pool is doing, making sure this looks different. It's kind of shiny. I like it. Just making sure that I'm not missing anything nefarious going on is a big thing. Calibrating, intuition, shit like that. Let's not over explain. Let's just fucking look at hands. It's going to jump the hero seed around a lot, so is what it is. But yeah, Ignition is pretty beautiful to study in this way. I'm really grateful to have such a huge database where I can just look over my own clairvoyant hands against Rex, against Regs at various points in history and see, especially against Rex, it's kind of nice to break your mind out of the box of we think people play like we play, and you need to see the times where that's just like incorrect. You should assume that people don't play like you play a lot of the time. You should be trying to disprove your assumptions as often as possible, while at the same time not just like throwing it all out completely, right? Oh no, the camera's... I've got a really, really, really shoddy... I think I've damaged the USB port on the camera because it makes me toggle it a lot. Yeah, one too many drops. Hello, camera. Wake up, camera. Wake up, camera. See, it's like showing up. Apologies. Don't drop your electronics as often as I do. Okay, beautiful. The problem is I'm having the type of tech issues which are literally, literally like cables being loose, messed up wires. Like I'm gonna try to adjust this camera and I might just lose it. Okay. Back in action. Am I actually streaming? It says it's going somewhere, but are we live?
What's up? What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel.
Okay, we're live. I'm not getting chat coming up though, which is strange. I'll just find it via YouTube, but it's not coming up in OBS. Welcome to Tech Issues, the chat. Shrunk the delay a little shorter than usual. Yeah, I had it super long recently. Okay, I now have chat open. I can see messages now. I haven't seen any since leading up to this point. Cool. Let's just go through some hands. So open. Oh yeah, this was a big one. This was like the punt of this session, I think, but it's kind of hard to say. This is one where like I had a good calling hand, but if I just call the good calling hands, I'm really owned by nuts. This is a line I don't see humans take very often, but it's like a pretty sensible line. Makes a lot of sense. We face the check raise call. They hit strong hand on the turn, but we're still going to have ace jack. They check, we check. We can still have like tons of sets, tons of two pair that have a hard time folding. We're probably not going to check ace jack on the turn very often. So they have jack 9 as the nuts. They can either double check raise or they can just like check jam river. Like this is going to be a mixed frequency play, especially against this size. I went so small on the river that I kind of thought people might be over bluffing, but I'm not like necessarily expecting that on a texture like this because they'd have to be doing stuff like basically raising like jack 10 on the flop to be showing up with like the sort of bluffs that I'm wanting them to have to be going all in at a high frequency. And of course, when they shove, I just need them to be bluffing like a huge percentage of the time, and it's really easy for them to have like just more value than bluffs. Like that's the gist of it. It's really easy to like shift that obviously with specific reads, but my main impression, like just looking at it in hindsight, like just taking the time to break it down, I remember my head was going into like I had the initial read they were weak when they checked because I think people generally do check kind of weak. I expect people to bet these hands the majority of the time. But yeah, no, I think my read was just off. There's a tendency for certain players, and in my head, you know, bots or like data-driven players to just like target this weak size. Like I went like half pot because there was rake there with the jam. But yeah, not generally on boards like this because, like I said, they don't show up with those hands. Let's go. So yeah, easy to just say, hey, blockers, mixed frequency play, but I know I'm calling too often there if I'm calling that hand, and I don't like my reasoning. Open. Okay, this table was crazy. It was like pretty much all fish. So like this sort of call makes sense when you got two fish behind and a fish who's v-pipping, you know, once they start opening 10-8 offsuit, queen 8 suited becomes a much nicer call, especially when the players behind aren't going to squeeze and they're going to call with shit like 5-6 offsuit. So this is where like live players who do a hell of a lot of cold calling, they're often doing something right. There's incentive to be doing this, especially if people behind you don't squeeze aggressively. So I'm not viewing this as anything, you know, necessarily strange. Even like the low 3-bet, you know, no real sample, but they have incentive to call more anyway. And yeah, like Jack 2 suited isn't generally doing great, but again, all the fish formation, you just need to be V-pipping really wide. And then we get some pretty wild hands. Hey Russ, how you going? Yeah, back in Sydney, good to be back. We're getting a late La Nina, so apparently it's just going to be pouring rain for the rest of the summer. We're getting like, not quite cyclones, but if you look on the map, you get these like huge spinning things, so just constant storms on the way. Hopefully the net will stay stable. Technology hasn't been my friend lately. Okay, so we get a lead out from the small blind. Hand makes sense. Easy call with top pair. They fold. They fold a straight. So I'm pretty sure. Wait, they just fold the flop straight. Like that. Like I'm pretty sure that this is just a fish. See, this is one good reason to look at clever win hole cards, right? We always see the fucked up shit that happens to us. Like when a fish does something dumb and they stack you, you always get that confirmation. You're always like, how could that possibly happen? You don't see when someone just misses, they flopped a straight and they fold. People make a lot of mistakes. It's so nice to see them. Holy cow. Lucky us, huh? Must be nice. And then we just hit 2 pair on the turn. They keep barreling. At this point, I'm thinking that the leading player can have just, infinite top pair. I'm thinking that their bluffs are mostly hands like this, or, 9-8, king 10, like a whole bunch of stuff that has a ton of equity. So we don't want them to just call for free. I'm also not expecting them to just, always dust it off on the river. I'm not expecting them to, even necessarily fold king 10 if I raise, but again, if they do, that's sort of a thing, right? You want to think about the equity of their folding range. That's a lot of fancy words for I just have a really strong value hand. I want to raise against the fish rather than trap. That's the decision I'm breaking down, raise or call. There's a player behind, but similar with the player behind, if I raise, now this guy might have to fold something like king 6 of spades. He's not going to be happy. So raising to get them out, even with a hand like this, I mean, he would have folded this hand in particular, but you get me. They end up calling, get the king on the river, they check, and, nothing to do but think a little bit and shove and take it down. Compare this to, if we just call turn, we get this river. They might bluff it, and obviously we're not folding, but we wouldn't be thrilled. And the pot would just be way smaller. I mean, very simple stuff, but just saying out loud, why it's important to fast play your value. You don't just trap. You get, especially against fish when they just go too wide, you don't have to have traps. You would trap if you thought it was higher EV, but there's no reason to, protect your calling range with just strong hands. If they're going to have top pair and you have 2 pair, just, raise as big as they're going to call. I could arguably go even bigger than I did. This was, a 3/4 pot raise or something. You could arguably jam, but, Yeah, so we got, people, limp calling. I'm not too worried about the state of ignition right now. This is 200L for what it's worth. Again, I don't trust Ignition's ability to, police the games, but there are whales showing up, and the regs have lost some interest there. Coin poker still looks really good as well. I'm not trying to, specifically promote anything. I try just not to promote sites. I do well enough coaching. I don't really have to do that. But yeah, the games on Coin Poker look pretty good. I think I do still have a referral code, EQ Poker or some shit, but yeah, I want to be clear, not sponsored, and I endorse nothing and no one. Okay, cool fish hand. We ISO big. They're calling Jack 4 off. They're just not really limp folding. We can just c-bet here because they're going to have shit like this and we take it down, but King-Queen doesn't really need to do that. King-Queen against this guy could arguably just call 3 streets. Say it goes Ace 3 6 6 deuce, some low bricky run out like that. When they're going to have offsuit garbage like this, you can just check call down with King High. It's a bluff catcher. If they have these available, this is the contingent thing. You can just call down. We'd hit the king on the turn, which makes it very psychologically easy, though there's the flush. And they're just going half pot, half pot, half pot, which is kind of the standard, I don't know what to do, I'm full of shit line. They're going to have some ace-x there. But especially, are they going to, snap bet half pot with, an ace-x? I doubt it. And then ace on the river, check, 3/4 now. I don't really know what they're doing, except hoping for us to fold exactly what we have, something like pocket jacks, but those hands should probably just be snap calling. You don't need to know much about a HUD. Essentially, like, we don't have many hands here, but these green numbers mean they're very active. Very, very active. They're limp calling everything. They're playing the majority of their hands. Where is it? The Equilab. This always comes up small on my monitor. I need to figure out a way to scale it. Oh no, it's coming up a little bigger, but yeah, it looks kind of small. But like, you're usually VPipping, like 22, 25 on the high end, like 27%, stuff like this. And if someone open raises, you're like different positions, you're being a lot tighter. But what they're doing is like limp calling like this, like every single suited hand and Jack 4 off, allegedly. So their range is like this. When they have all these hands, and I want to be clear, like, there's 4 times as many offsuit combos as suited combos. They have 990. They have almost every hand available. Yeah, they can have a lot of ace-x, but just the ratio skews massively to, like, overbluff. They don't always have to bluff, but they also don't have to always bet their value hands. And then you get tells within sizing and line and stuff like that. But the general trend is bluff catch fucking wide against lunatics. And easy game. Next. I'm just going to speed through these instead of giving free coaching, because I want to play some hands. This was like the one that was most non-standard for me, like especially multi-way. But this one big blind bet, I could just bet, because I'd seen this guy doing the one big blind bet. But I was also fine to just like check raise it. And then when he raises me again, I kind of hate life, but just like, you can see, he has king jack, our pot odds, and we're out of position, so it's hard to realize this equity, so we are doing worse than it looks generally, because he can just check turn if he wants to. But we need 25% and we have 16, and that's with him specifically dominating our hand, like ace jack, king jack. It's pretty much the worst case scenario. Of course, his entire value range beats us, obviously, so it's just, I think he's capable of donk re-raising. It's kind of a weird thing happening. King on the turn, they bet half pot. We're just, again, almost getting like direct odds, but it's brutal out of position. And then somehow we go check on the river. I don't know how they avoid the jam there. We can have ace queen. Like, we can definitely have ace queen, but very nitty check on the river. That check on the river again, I don't think this is a bot. It wouldn't make sense for a bot to be doing something like this. So, a lot of weird stuff going on, but games are good. 3-bet, half pot, get a call. King on the turn was kind of interesting. Like, we could just down bet, we could just check and hope they bluff, but like, basically, when the king comes as an overcard, it's near nutted. Because what king X do they have? They can have some ace king if they play that way. They can have king queen, king jack of spades type hands if they actually call them versus half pot, which not everyone will. So a king, they just don't have many. And then they do have all of the like jacks, 10s, 9s, 8-7, 5-4, diamond drawers, all these hands that we really like to bet against. So we're either going like check, call, or just betting. I really think both are fine, but condenses a lot. We get this, I don't know what the hell they're doing calling. It makes my line better. And then somehow we go check on the river. They don't bluff it, which is the biggest punt in the world. I would have had to think about folding. It's really brutal. You're meant to turn like pairs into bluffs here. This is just the absolutely abysmal check back. It's very easy to think I could have showdown, I shouldn't bluff. But when you get to this spot where like I'm going to be betting most of my ace king and stuff like that, it's not like I'm checking a flush here. It just doesn't happen. It's not how it works. I keep betting the strong hands so that they don't get to check and just see river for free, because I have the range advantage generally. So yeah, not bluffing a hand like this after calling it is ludicrous. It's just a torch. They're probably losing like 20 big blinds with the call. It's so bad. Because like, what if I have Jack 10? I'm not giving up river, so they don't ever show down. King 6 ISO. Wild player calls worst King 6. This was a fun hand. Okay, I was wondering what this guy had. Yeah, ISO. Low board. It's easy to check multi-way against fish a lot because they're going to actually hit here quite a bit. But this hand's pretty nice to bet. It's kind of awkward with the SPR. Like, I don't want to check raise against this guy. So yeah, could bet smaller just to fold out stuff like Jack 10, Ace 9, give them a problem, but I think this size is fine. We end up going 3 ways to the turn. Ace, I think, is good for me. They can have Ace 4, Ace 5 off, but like, it's a scare card. Now all these pairs get demoted. like, yeah, they can have ace 5, they can also have jack 4, and all of those hands are folding but beat me. Again, I don't want to check or check raise against this guy, so I see nothing else to do bet with equity. And I was just going to call it off against this guy, like, because I think he is capable of just like showing up with like, we're pricing ourselves in kind of. Like, I have to bet, and then we're going to have a call against that guy. He actually folds, which is great. 10-7 calls makes sense. I'd expect most of the 7s to call most of the time. And yeah, we have a bluff, and they still have a lot of these pairs to target, so like nothing else to do. I just bet a medium size and take it down. Again, remember that people aren't, unless you're a really, really, really high level player, people barely know their own ranges. They don't know your ranges. So if fish just sees the ace come on the turn, they don't think, are you really c-betting aces on the flop? First of all, that's really hard to know. You got to do a lot of research to even guess that, but they don't even begin to think that way. It's just like, I have top pair. Oh no, ace bad. I hope they don't bet. Oh, they did bet. I fold. Like, that's really the level like most people end up on most of the time. They might just decide to call sometimes. They might say they're sick of it and decide you're bluffing, either because they've seen you be active or because they've been losing or whatever the fuck else. But it's really, really level 1 thinking. My hand got worse. I'm going to fold a lot now. If you combine that with the fact that a lot of players aren't bluffing for like a triple barrel line enough, like most players in low stakes live poker are either under bluffing generally or way over bluffing if they're a like crazy amateur, then like they're not even wrong to do it unless they have evidence that you're the exception. So when you're playing 200L online, when you're playing like a random casino game, don't worry about balance and stuff. It's the devil. It's worth understanding it. You need to understand that to get to a higher level, but I think you get the point. 10-8 bet call. This was a fun one. This is like, I just kind of felt like they were going to be in a folding mood. We didn't get the ideal run out for it. This isn't the ideal bluffing hand, but you can definitely like bet hands of this sort of hand class on the turn for an overbet size now and then. Then river, I'm targeting nut flush draws and stuff like my size. I didn't hate it, and they actually like tank called the king queen. They did think about folding. Hey Tim, yeah, I've given away too much value. Don't expect any more from me. Don't expect any more. That's the gist of it. No, I'm bluffing. Too much value. I didn't like my line here. This was like later in the session. This was after I got coolered in the first hand where I like called the check jam and they just had the nuts. That definitely affected me, made me sort of doubt myself and not just like stick with the obvious thing. I started leveling myself a little bit, which is something that is common for me getting back into a new environment. Like if I start playing live, if I start playing Ignition, until I get the reps in and I just like calm all of that, I am prone to reactivity. I think most people are. I think I'm usually very aware of it, maybe too aware of it. I don't know if I have more or if I just notice it more early, but you know what I mean? I'm not going to try to rationalize this as a good play. What I'm saying is I know that I was emotionally tilted a little bit and that I can feel how this played out in the hand. So I ISO'd, like, you don't have to ISO this that early, but the table is very weak. Again, too tight, guys. I'm going to end up like in position against fish a lot of the time, so I like the ISO a lot. They call. Amazing spot, right? Because we're ahead, they're out of position, we make even more money. Just great things happen when we're in position. Can check and just bluff catch. They're not super aggro, so I think like c-bet's fine. I could even go smaller, almost value own them. Call, and then they lead. And again, like nitty a fish so far, right? So they can be bluffing. I hit a 9, I'm definitely calling. They can have 9-8, half pot, call. Then river, pot. Generally strong. Yes, they can be bluffing. Even this fish can be bluffing. Are they bluffing like a third of the time? Kind of hard to say. Like, my gut said no, but yeah, I don't know. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I think you can make a good fold here. You would have to call against someone like player 1. But, you know, I think like generally close fold here, like on average, whatever. It's not a huge deal, but I do think this is going to be underbluff for the size. Say he went half pot again on the river, like half pot, then we just beat value, don't think about anything. Cool. But is he going to pot even a hand like ace-9 if he has it? If he's like raising 3% of hands and limping them all? He's just trying to see rivers. So I have seen like passive fish will do this sort of line quite a lot. And just imagine, I don't know, I've got kings. It's just like, I've got kings and it's a fish, how can I fold? Type thinking. Some guys kind of know that. They just play their value that way, and yeah, I don't know. But obviously maximum results orientation. This was a weird one. Okay, we open. Small blind flat. They donk large. Ace-jack has many good things that can happen. I call. They go small on the turn. I hate this, but we're just being priced in. And then we just hit the ace on the river. Must be nice. They go really small. I raise, and they call. And this is where, again, just look at positional advantage, right? Let's just look at the odds, okay? So the general idea is in position, you're doing better than your odds, and out of position, you're doing worse than your direct odds. Because in position gets to act with perfect information, and out of position, stuff happens where, like what are they going to do? Donk this river? Like, they're kind of just at my mercy. So let's just look at the prices, right? So flop, whatever, it's a little bit more ambiguous, but then turn. With the pot odds we're getting against that size, we only need to win 19.3% of the time. Like, that's the price we're getting. Even against jacks, we have 7%. So if I saw jacks, I could fold. I mean, if I see their hand, maybe we could do some freaky stuff and like shove a flush close river and things like that and just exploit it to hell. But let's just, like, we're just thinking they have a pair. Most of their pairs, we're going to have like 14% equity. Give that a boost for in position. We almost have direct odds. And then just look at stuff like this. They donk, we hit the ace, and we kind of get to choose our price and get paid. They're trying to go a third. We get to say, let's play for twice as much money. And they're just like, okay, I'll pay you. So that's where, like, you just thinking one step beyond the immediate odds you get, right? You see that, you will see that baked into solver outputs. You will see that baked into every strategy in position good. It's the utility of why. So just never get too hung up on it. But obviously you can see how all like the price plus the range plus your options on different runouts come together. It's that understanding of all of the different strategic options, all the ways to get value, all the ways to bluff, putting in money when you're ahead and not putting it behind. Like, the bigger your edge there, the more you can do sort of things like that. It's sort of like keeping your mind open to the opportunities that will come up. But that's where, like, say you're live, you might go, oh, this guy doesn't have a flush draw, this guy has a weak 9. I'm going to call everything and shove a flush close river and value raise appropriately. There are players who are super sick at just, like, doing completely fucked up stuff like that that's detached from any semblance of balance. And if you do have a read, like a reliable read, if you plugged that into solver, solver would agree. Like, if you said, hey, solver, when we hit a flush river, I get to buy the pot with 90% efficiency. It's going to go like, oh, hell yeah, brother. Let's call and hope we get a flush river, fold whenever we don't, and bluff the hell out of them when we do. So that's where, like, you can kind of exploitatively solve and, like, lock these things in. I'm speaking really abstractly there. I'm not saying that's like a real example that's coming up very much. But if you know something like that, if you can think one street ahead, you're unlocking just so much pot capture. Opinions on coin poker, I think, yeah, I agree the Rapex system is sus as hell. I think they're doing really cool stuff for the ecosystem. I'll probably play there because it's like, I can only really play Ignition and they're just in Australia, so it suits me. And it attracts crypto fish, so that's good. Are they a legitimate operation? I know nothing more about that than you. I have zero insider information. I have a referral code if you want it, EQ Poker, same referral code as everybody. I make fuck all from that, and I'm not here to push it. Can you extrapolate from their pre-flop raise stat to estimate how strong their pot size riverbed is? So like, let's imagine some guy plays every hand pre-flop, and someone else plays 3% of hands pre-flop. They have a lot more hands available. They've got to do something with them. They're putting them somewhere. Some guy might always check and fold river, but that's pretty unusual. Usually the guys who play more hands, they're going to bet more, they're going to have more trash, more mergy stuff all over. If someone only has aces pre-flop at the extreme end, then obviously we can make like pretty strong assumptions. But yeah, it's not always like a perfect thing, but yeah, there's a correlation, right? And if you do a lot of data work, like me and a lot of other people have, you can kind of see like, because all we're trying to do is make the best guess. The more hands someone plays pre-flop, the more aggressive they are, the wider I'm going to call, the more I'm going to assume they have bullshit all over the place. Especially, but you can also use all the stats together, right? So this guy plays 60% of hands, and he c-bets all the time, and I've seen he tends to be weak for half pot, and he tends to be strong when he bets big. I might still call because he can still be bluffing in the big size, but when he goes to the small size, that's just where he's putting his bullshit. So I'm going to go after the bullshit node. That's the sort of thing where that happens to different extremes. Some people, they literally only bluff for half pot on the river, and they'll always have value for the pot size bet. Usually it's a spectrum where they're going to bluff less for the pot size bet and they're going to bluff more for the small pot bet because of what I'm saying. So you don't want to think of it in a complete black and white thing, but if we're just looking on the river like, should I call or should I fold? That's the sort of stuff that leads you to like an automatic decision. And maybe you're only right 8 or 9 out of 10 times, and this guy's the exception. I don't know him from Adam, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to call. I'm going to call my bluff catches 100% of the time. Obviously, like this is ignition, it's anonymous, so we're going to reset it. If I play against someone live for a year and he knows that I know, then sometimes you can come up with an exception. But it's really hard for people to shift out of their defaults generally, and these tend to be like subtle trends. And then like, but what if they know that I know and they start bluffing for pot? That could happen. Then you need to, pay attention and figure out if that is happening, right? Is this the type of guy who is shifting his strategy? That's where higher and higher level play comes in. But most of your money, especially at low stakes, is coming from people who don't even have an awareness of this sort of line selection, right? Like just thinking in terms of, okay, what are the positions at the table? We've got different opening ranges. What's this guy opening? Oh, he's a recreational who's wide, so he's got a bunch of bullshit. Oh, and he just bets small on the flop and he doesn't look that interested in the pot. He's got a hell of a lot of fucking bullshit. Next thing is like, what am I going to do now that I know he has second pair type hands a lot of the time? There's still further questions from that. But just ranging people in that way and using that to base your strategy instead of trying to play one exact consistent thing against every player is a lot more sensible. Might have to get the door in a sec. Kings, 4-bet call, small bet. Oh, this was fun. Yeah, so 4-bet, they call ace-high flop. You can just c-bet tiny because hands like pocket jacks hate life. Jacks with a spec club has to call, but this is miserable for them. Compare this to just something like betting all my hands small compared to like betting ace-king, betting bluffs, and like checking all the underpairs. If I check all the underpairs, I'm pretty vulnerable to being bluffed. Like if I check queens and then they bet jacks as a bluff, I have to fold queens, and that's awful. So kind of nice to be at a small bet. This is kind of like solver approved. They got to do weird raises and stuff at some uncomfortable frequency to make my life hell, and they just feel like a dummy when I just have aces, right? And then similarly on the turn, I end up just doing the same thing, this like tiny bet, basically hoping queens calls or denying the opportunity to bluff river. Kind of funny. Can also just check. It's going to be close here, but unless they have check raises against small bet, life's kind of hard for them. Okay, ISO this one, small bets. They click back the the king 9. That's kind of fun. I call, queen on the turn, they check. I just start bluffing, they call. Nice scare card river, they bet small. I end up folding. I wonder what they would have done if I had raised. That's one when nothing obvious comes up to me. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time looking at it. Yeah. I'm also, for the record, I'm trying to speak more about general high impact stuff here and not rabbit hole endlessly into niche stuff. I'm pretty happy to give away things that I think are pretty much par for the course amongst strong players, but anything like cutting edge, I'm not going to spend too long on. This was a weird one. So I ISO, I get min 3-bet. we're just calling everything, again, position, right? So, like, we're getting direct odds, right? You shouldn't really fold anything to a min 3-bet from a fish. Even if you knew it was aces, you probably shouldn't fold at this stack depth. Yeah, they check again, I bet. They call, 10 on the river. I end up giving up this river because I'm like hoping they have ace queen, and I think this is usually not a great river to bluff. Because like say they have ace jack, I think they would fold ace jack most of the time, but not always fold ace queen. They can still have some traps. This one's kind of unclear. This one's kind of unclear to me. Bluff opportunity, but yeah, regardless. I mean, how do I put it? Also, you don't have to take every bluff to make money either. Like bluffs in a vacuum are like 0-ish EV generally. I mean, I'm talking about like the one where the guy didn't bluff ace queen, he was torching. But the point I'm making is whether or not we win this pot, you can also just look at it. This is where theory helps, right? Okay, direct pot odds priced in. Okay, not a great flop. Oh, we checked. Maybe that's good. I'll check again. Oh, we checked again. He's very weak. I should be bluffing a lot. Oh, bad river. But say it's a 6, a 7, a club. I think I'm printing money by bluffing. Printing. The problem with bluffing here is like they can just have jacks. They can just have a 10 that they hit. But yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad bluff. It's just it's not clearly very profitable. And obviously it would be a lot better to just hit a club. It's going to be a lot scarier for them. Scare cards do in fact get more folds. Because a scare card, both psychologically is impactful, and then also just, I mean, the perceived range and the real range. So like, oh, I can have more value hands. I can, it's credible. I'm allowed to bet more in theory on a club than a 10. Because I just have more good hands. That's just how it works. People tend to take that too far, so they see all the flushes and they don't see the fact that I have queen 6 of hearts in my range. They see, fuck, flush, fuck. Not, oh, flush, and you have all this bullshit, and you're going to keep bluffing on the flush. I guess I have to call sometimes anyway. You know what I mean? Because most people are just playing the board. They're playing their idea of theory. They're not playing you. And even if they wanted to, we all have imperfect information. I'm not saying that, like, they should just look me up all day like they don't know who I am. That's where the game of poker is, right? Okay, and... Oh, no. Okay, I'm the big blind. I was like, why am I flooding ace queen? This was fun. Okay, I call. They end up c-betting, which is fine on this board, but meh. They call. I've got a cool backdoor hand to be raising. I think under the gun, when I start raising, they're going to have to fold ace king, ace queen to like 3 barrels a lot, and obviously I can just keep barreling certain runouts. But the fish ends up calling me. I think the fish can have weaker hands, but now once they've called and then called again, since they have hands like this in range that they don't raise, I think it's going to be really hard to get an ace to fold for 3 streets here. It's possible, like they will. I could be wrong about that. They do fold ace-x sometimes, but it's not appealing to me to be bluffing here, right? Especially because this is a bad turn. Would I bet a 5 of spades? Probably, because I don't want to check on a 5 of spades. I'm going to have all that improved equity. I'd obviously bet on a straight, like a gut shot thing, but I'm going to want some equity now, because it's not great, so I need support. I can't just bluff here with absolutely no outs. There's no way for my hand to improve to a value bet. I'm going to check out a position, because I don't think it's great. Ace river, I end up betting small. I don't like this now, but the reason I did this was I was hoping he just had, like 4-5 can fold to the small bet. It might still call anyway. If he just has like king queen of clubs that got sticky, those are the type of hands that might fold now. I like this a lot against fish, but I don't like it in this spot. I just don't think they have as many of those hands I'm talking about. I can just pass on it now. Congrats on MTG Arena Rank 1. Thank you. Misspent youth finally paid off, and I immediately hit 1200 Arena Rank playing a different format like a week later. Yeah, betting small's underrated. It just gives you problems. You just really need to know what you're doing. But it's... People just, like, they see it as a bet, and the response is really unintuitive. So it is like this sort of freeze play that you kind of have to do a bunch of work to overcome, even. And then you get like levels to it where like maybe some guy donks and then they raise and then the guy who bets small raises again and you're like fuck, like you just there's just every single time you're hit with this new puzzle. Um, it asks a lot of the player facing the small bet. Yeah. And those 4-bet pots are just functions disgustingly well. Like seriously, it's the 10% C bet on ace high flop 4-bet pot is really, really standard. Really standard. Just because quarter pot's too easy. If you go quarter pot, just fold kings, fold queens. You go 10%, you're like, damn it, I have to call jacks. I have to sometimes. Okay, we got lucky here. ISO 7s, this guy calls. Checks around, check. They bet one big blind. So this is why I was like raising the queen jack type thing. Call there. Don't really want to bluff raise it, but are we even getting direct odds? It's not showing us multi-way, but yeah, we got a good, we can call. And then, hey, there's a 7. Check, they min bet. That guy actually raises the 6-9, which is, yeah, this is almost sus. Like this is where I'm worried about collusion-y type stuff, but it's not a big deal. I think it's just kind of punty. I raise and they both fold. Yeah. I mean, another thing with the 4-bet pot, I can just have aces and then like everything is dead. They have no outs. So whenever like they're literally dead with so much of their range, it's going to make sense that you can have a hand that bets that small when you're invulnerable. Because any money is good. There's more going into like why you would do that over other options, but yeah. Usually if you see solve or do something, ask what it achieves, and then ask why would this be better or worse in practice? And then of course as a human, are you going to play the next street well? Because when you're going smaller, it's going to be a wider range. You got to understand what you're arriving with, basically. Oh, I'm so glad I found this fold. Yeah, open. We call 7s. They go half pot. I call. It's just standard defend in these wide formations, I think. 8 on the turn. I almost thought about donking. It's fine. They bet again. I just end up check folding. This one I do actually need to review. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to open solvers on stream if I can help it. It'll just bewilder us. And it's not necessary, like, genuinely. I can use it to prove something I'm saying and visualize it, but I'm not interested. Wow, they almost called me here. They tank folded. Okay, I 3-bet against this super active player. C-bet small. I'm happy for them to call everything with a hand this good. Bet turn. Could bet smaller, but I'm just sort of targeting like King X. I do think maybe I went big. Like half pot might actually be better here. Obviously, it's biased against this hand class. Like, if you see a king, this is a great size, but I don't think a king even always calls, surprisingly. That's part of why bluffing is overperforming against fish. That's why it's hard to know what to do against fish unless you have a lot of experience or you look at data averages too, because they just do random stuff. They'll have hands and do one thing or not do another thing for reasons that aren't really consistent. So it's good to understand the averages, but then also try to find specific exceptions. This guy's calling here on this board. This particular guy is tilted from the last hand, so he does this. You'll never get data to prove that, and you don't want to do it all the time, but you do need to be open to that sort of reads in addition to data if you are taking the data approach. Because all the data is the average of the hands the fish played. And you can only get like a rule of thumb from data that is so accurate. It's always going to stop on the average because you're going to get, 2 or 3 samples over a 10 million hand database for some of these things I'm talking about. But yeah, I know. We get the 4-bet. We get he just shoves, right? Yeah, okay. So there's some free money. They're just putting in 7-8 suited. Nice hand. Okay, I'm bored of reviewing hands. Let's play hands. We got like 2K in the roll on Iggy. Those were all 200 in L. I'm just I'm checking out the state of the Ignition games before I dive in higher. There's massive collusion and their security team's a fucking joke. If I sound angry and bitter, it's because I am. There we go. Like I like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Generally, like the crypto sites, these relatively unreg. Oh wait, is there? Aha, beautiful. Something I prepared earlier. Here, start HUD. G. Just loading up 200 now again. I'm probably not going to play a ton of higher on stream, but we'll see. Maybe on Coin Poker. Now I'm just trying to put hands in and float out options my comfort zone. Like I said, games have looked okay lately. I'm I'm not confident that there aren't bots or anything like that, but gotta do what you gotta do. Make disciplined folds. I don't really want to play heads up. This like some of why I'm sad about there being bots and line is like, wouldn't it be great if I could trust that this guy, I mean, not collusion, but RTA and cheating and stuff. I wish I could sit a random player and know I'm not being cheated because I'm not a great heads up player. So my upside relatively small. Like if someone is studied, I don't really have edge. But I can see a fish or I can see a guy who I think I've got a small edge against, and if there's a 20% chance or even a 5% chance he's cheating me, it like gets rid of all of the advantages of playing it. So that's why I would love a fair ecosystem online. On some of the sites in the UK, you can get that, but like there just aren't that many fish because it's hard for them to make money online. There's a high risk of being cheated. I am being cheated daily on Ignition, but also people can deposit with cryptocurrency. So there's a whole bunch of money from people who have a bunch of cryptocurrency somehow, and they can't deposit it on like PokerStars UK, you know. Well, you'd be surprised. Like God's plan on the double flush draw, non-paired board, even aces would have incentive to put in a larger bet. Yeah, a lot of the time, again, there is incentive. Um, I'm not saying that like small bet on the turn is going to be standard. What you would do is you would bet aces, like in theory, you would bet aces a little bit of the time because it's okay, and that would let you do stuff like bluff for a cheap price. It would let you do stuff like bet pocket kings for value and protection. So you would put a little bit of aces in so they can't just raise aces. Because the problem is, if you only bet kings and worse, they know that any ace is the nuts. Then they can like raise in your face as much as they like whenever you bet small like that, and then buff you with everything. Um, but we're not playing a solver that can see our exact range. We're playing a human being who sees 5% bet and gets paranoid. Start raising. Well, the guys who do start raising are probably raising way too often. Like this is the challenge. This is where solvers help. Like, yeah, if they have a flush draw, they raise for protection. No, so like all of these things we're talking about are happening all at once. We can't fit it in our head, and we can't fit it into like something that I can or any of us can say, even in like paragraphs. We can't say everything that's happening. In practice, though, usually people are locked into, partially because of this. Like, if I think what's happening, I'm going to tell a story that covers like 30% of what is happening or could be happening, and I'm going to overweight that, missing all this other stuff. The solver just does it all. And so when we can like internalize the solver wisdom into a process that gives us all that benefit of it, that's sort of the work of like a high level player. Um, but like, you know what I mean? It's just like bigger than anything we could sort of speak about because there's like 20 things going on all at once. So yeah, I think that effect I'm talking about though, like bet aces sometimes, so you're allowed to bet kings, which is the hand that wants to bet. Solver does that sort of fucked up stuff a lot. It's about betting kings, and aces lets it happen. But you could also just go, hey, you can't do 10%. We're not giving you that option. You care, and Solver will say, not really. I don't really care. And then the exploitative edge as a human being would probably be betting kings all the time without aces for protection until they start raising you. And then that's how you unlock like natural exploitative play. The thing is, though, obviously every spot, every hand is different. I'm pretty happy to give that away because good luck, good luck figuring that out for like I don't know, your double check raise strategy on the turn or whatever. that balance of standard and exception and imbalance and balance is a very interesting problem to solve. Speaking of, I'm opening up mentorship programs again this year for any coaching students interested. If you are a professional player or on the cusp of professional, if you want to make 100 plus an hour playing poker, play any games in the casino, play 200 L plus, fine. Give me a DM. I would like to play hands with this active fish by any means necessary. I forget what hand I have. Ace King just like, that's a bet. Oh, dead. Dead. But yeah, I mean, we're just flipping. Ace King plays kind of weird. You can 4-bet normal in, but like Ace King, even at like 100 bigs, just jams a lot out of position. So the other. Careful of what? Yeah, that's a good. The text isn't coming up on screen. I got to configure it for YouTube chat instead of Twitch chat. Logical Mythology said, yeah, if they have a flush draw, they raise for protection. No, speaking about the Ace X hand, I was playing podcast said protect a flush draw. Some of these concepts, right? Yeah, you really got to unpack what is protection. And the other side of protection, well, like most of protection, is about equity realization and denial. Protection is a nonsense word that people put in when they're not quantifying it generally. What you want, like, say you have a flush draw, and you could see river and have a chance to hit your flush draw, and they give you and you fold it mistakenly. You've got the wrong price or whatever. They force you out of it. Had that equity denied. So you could say protection is anything that lets you realize your equity. I think about realizing or over realizing your equity, getting your fair share of the pot, not folding for the wrong price, being bluffed off a hand that's ahead. And think about denial. Anytime you make them fold a better hand, anytime you make them fold a draw, all of that's exceptional. Or even stuff like you bet small on the flop and they fold king high and you had 6 high. These standard things of bluffing and realization and bread and butter plays that we take for granted, equity realization and denial. When people say protection, I really don't know what they mean. I used to say it a lot as a generalization, and sometimes I think it is just like a code word for what I'm talking about. But it's one of those bullshit words that you should look out for in your own thinking. Replace it with equity realization and all about equity. That's the way the solver views it. Cards on the board, they represent equity. They're going to get paid under certain circumstances. Like, why do you overbet on the turn on a double flush draw board more often? Have good hands that want to get paid, and that you benefit more from them folding parts of their range. If you bet small, they have too easy of a time realizing their equity. Again, if you want to, if like protection makes sense to you, like fit that into it, that's fine. Common bugbear word. Or even funny things too. You can even think about it. Like, I bet Jack 10. He might have actually folded like Jack 9. I still denied him hitting the 9. Does getting that, can't finish that into a cohesive thought. I guess, like, even when they fold worse, you still denied some equity. But if you think my goal is to deny equity, you might try to deny equity and still make the wrong play because you're so focused on denying equity that you miss the benefit of what if he hits and he does this or whatever. So it's all, again, all these things going on can be kind of dangerous. Not dropping frames, this is a problem. Small blind flat is weird, tends to be very like pocket pair heavy. And you have 6s, 7s, 8s. Check it. I'm not confident in betting this hand for 3. There's also like an overcard comes. Now he checks. Now I'm pretty happy betting. But as that's pretty good. If he has a set, he's going to raise it now, and we should get all the marks. Yeah, but so I was talking about the problem of overwhelm with a million things going on at once. Well, one way you can like address that is just acknowledging your limits and like prioritizing what matters for you, right? So, for example, the exact bet size you use doesn't matter. Program, like, it doesn't matter if you bet 2/3 or 3. Pick one and always use that size. Give yourself like fixed option. And then just focus on not missing bluffs, not missing value bets. Whenever you bet, think, what are you achieving? But think like, okay, am I betting 3/4 on the turn or over betting the turn? Those are my options. Am I bluffing enough? Like, what are my bluffs? What are my value hands? Don't miss value. Is this a spot where I want to bluff more or less than theory? Where do my bluffs come from? Where am I missing them? Those are relevant questions. You don't have to think about everything at once. Commit to a size. You understand that you put both things in that size, and you go from there. Yeah. Really, really bad river. Got a lot of bluffs available. We want them to have queen 10. I mean, they can't really have queen 10. Generally. I'm good. There's a million of those like shit words like protection. These ideas, more of a reflection of the human psychology than the reality, and I think you do kind of have to deprogram yourself from it, or like just ask like, what do I mean by that exactly, and what am I implying with that? How is that governing my behavior? How is that word or that idea shaping the action I take? And I think that question is worth extending to pretty much everything you've ever heard from everybody in your life, entire world. If you're as radical as me, like society on the whole is just kind of made up of these things. That isn't to say there isn't wisdom and value in them. There absolutely is. But to like go, okay, what is the utility of this? Where is it actually hurting me more than helping me? Where can I maybe do better, or like experiment with the edges of it? Like, you don't throw it all out. Again, like sometimes it's just an entirely useless idea, but sometimes it's just about interpreting it or applying it in the right place, figuring out where the exceptions are. Yeah, God's Plan, Jack 9 was top boat. I don't remember what I said. If you're looking for specific real examples, it ain't gonna work. I'm throwing out the principles. You're gonna have to insert your own right now. You get what I mean? Keep rolling with it. Can't promise to improve in that area. My arithmetic is atrocious. Like, the more poker I've played, I'm way worse at any arithmetic, any numbers, any calculating of like specific pot odds, or like 27 times 15. I used to be great at that stuff. I mean, I can do it, but I feel my brain working towards it. And by just like playing millions of hands, like the actual skill I've been developing is more, I know what it feels like to have like 32% equity. I can feel the difference between like 30% and 15% and 50%. Unless you train that, I think pretty much everybody, just how we're wired as humans, it's way more black and white. Like, people can't feel the difference 50-50. And I'm not trying to make some grand statement with that. It's just like an observation I found, like less precision and more intuitive, taking in the information I'm seeing to nudge my decisions. So I already know my options and I know where it would shift, focusing on these shifts within the framework instead of ground up. This is an aside. This is a massive aside to what you're saying. Obviously, this came to mind. Learning pots. But like that's just the shift from like the models of competence. Like conscious competence would be adding it up mathematically, and then unconscious competence. I know, and I'm a lot more focused on instantly being 90% accurate to slowly being 100% in the context of multi-tabling poker session. I think the value in that idea, like if you're wondering what good is that to me, is just to be aware of that shift. I think it's really easy to, if you're stuck in that quant mode, to overly fixate on accuracy and to worry, if I don't pay attention to everything, if I don't think through everything, what if I make a mistake? But it is kind of that there's a sweet spot, of the thinking fast and slow type stuff. I want to move more stuff that can be automatic into the intuitive autopilot back of mind, taking care of itself stuff just by repeating it a lot, so that you can think slowly and deliberately when it really matters. And you don't want to get stuck in it either. Like as I got faster with that, I also had to practice going, oh, this is a 4-bet pot. I can literally count every combo he has and figure out if he's over bluffing or under bluffing because it's a 4-bet triple barrel spot. There are times where ranges are so narrow that you can absolutely do all of that, I'm sure everyone's capacity varies a lot. So much of it is experience, but I'm only speaking to my own inner state. In Magic the Gathering, for example, I used to hurt my brain all the time thinking about board states, and now I can just pretty much instantly know my attacks. Because I just worked through it so many times, and I think that process was something like, I mean, even like I'm doing now, telling stories about the numbers, like coming up with a narrative about the quantified side, looking at a solver that tells me, look, here's the calculator result. The hell is this big? I don't like the size they're using. You can like almost just fold jacks here because like I'm gonna call because I hate money. It's just like they don't really 4-bet jacks very often. It's pretty much queens plus. So we're hoping they have like ace queen, ace king. And yeah, at this point we're going with it because pot odds. You also just need to see where your brain tricks you, right? Because like it's really easy to think like, ooh, jacks, ooh, I'm usually beat, and then miss something like pot odds, right? Like there's spots where like you can totally fold on the same board just due to like SPR, due to all these variables. And that's where you make the best decision you can in game, and then you spend maybe 5 minutes doing it more slowly on review. Bridge the gap between slow thinking on review and what you do instantly in game. One isn't better than the other, they support each other. The objective of the slow study. How the hell did we win? Ace queen? Ace 5? Yeah. Jesus. Also, just knowing the difference between like, are you thinking quickly and rushing through a spot because you've already thought it through and you know what to do and you've mastered it and you're prepared? Or in my case there, are you just going, fuck, I've got jacks, I hope they don't have queens. Like, I am not. I don't know what I'm expecting the ignition population to be 4-betting right now. I have my ideas from the past. And I don't know exactly what my plan is with super confidence. I am kind of winging. So even just having that self-honesty to know where to work harder. I'd contrast that with, again, thinking you should learn everything or follow someone else's path exactly. Like, usually it's shared, right? Like, if you haven't studied something, Like, say you wouldn't even know where to begin answering a question. Like, how do you play multi-way pots? There's no like good, well, there's no publicly commonly used intuitive, no multi-way GTO wizard that you can just look it up and it will tell you. And even if you did, it would be so far from what you should do, kind of crazy. That means there's probably edge there if you answer that question yourself. There probably isn't much edge in what flop sizing you if you're just thinking about the flop sizing and you're not thinking about how it changes river strategy. And how flop size changes river strategy in practice, even that's not something GTO Wizard can tell you. So, again, like the game is so far from solved. The best players and like mediocre players on the surface, they look exactly the same. Because they're using good sizes and good lines. But one guy might be bluffing 90% there, another guy might be bluffing with RNG and deliberately bluffing too much, and another guy might be under bluffing. 3 good players. And they might all be playing a great strategy that makes money, or maybe 2 of them are punting. And no, oh fuck. Okay, I rejoined. Lucky. I'm talking too much. I have a good feeling. Okay, there we go. We might have won the max. I don't think we won the max, but yeah. Hey, maps. What about protections related to flop range construction? Right, so that sounds like a great application of actual protection. So, yeah, what about protection? In that sense, protection is just about how capped you are, right? So, let's say I have a hand. I want to bet second pair for a small size. To get value, to charge third pair, stuff like that. If you know I only have second pair, that means all of your good second pair, all of your top pair is the nuts. If you know I have second pair only for a size, you can go all in at any point. You can put in all of the money and say, fuck you, I have the nuts against what you're doing. So that's what being capped is. And usually it's not extreme. Usually someone is maybe, they're meant to have 5% or 10% stronger hands and they have 2%. It's the same thing in practice. So their protection is, I want to bet small with my second pair, and then I need to have some top pair, I need to have some nuts here to stop you just treating it like your top pair is the that sounds like a real and useful interpretation of protection. That would be one way to that word doesn't come to mind when I think of that. I just think capped, but yeah, that's totally valid. That makes sense. Great point. Fix the haircut, dog. It deliberately looks like this so that people like you will give me shit. It acts as a great filter. Shouldn't listen to a guy with a haircut like this. Mark, yes, it is, especially in the inner west. If you don't have a haircut like this, like they're gonna line me up. If you don't have a mullet, people will resent you if you make too much money. That's my theory. If you do have a mullet, you're a man of the people. But like genuinely, the way I feel it is a way that I somewhat diminish like any sense of a class divide. Like I can speak with random uni students. I can speak with like heroin dealers. I can speak with whoever the fuck if you have a haircut like this. Where say I'm walking around with a $200 haircut and like a bunch of designer shit from the States. Not like that's like exactly my style, but that does alienate you from people as opposed to like making you more approachable in a certain way. That's the idea of the mullet. Deliberately like breaking down class divides. It is also just people I like to hang out with tend to have mullets. It is a bit of a uniform. That's not exclusively true, but it is a cultural trend in Australia, especially the West. But like, see here, it's business up front, party in the back. So much utility. Like, I'm on levels you people don't even understand. You Yanks. But wait, look, you didn't even know how far a mullet can go. You didn't even know. And a little block bet. Block bet. They raised big, they c-bet, and they checked. They're in hell with like 2 overcards. And we get 2 streets about it. Cheap. Yeah, look at how cheap that was. If we had just checked turn, they're gonna bet bigger on the river. Fuck them. It's polarizing. Thank you, LW. The haircut of a man who likes to overbet. Wait, I'll get something. I'm gonna call you out by name. Stilian Ivanov. Oh yeah, of course you'd like. Yeah, I got something for you. I got something for you. Tell me if this is better. Oh, this is great. Okay. Okay, you ready? You ready? Are you I'm not ready. It won't I keep closing the tab accidentally. Okay, here we go. Which of these would you prefer I have? I'm kind of partial to this one. There's a lot of merit to this. This is closest to what I have right now. I see the argument. It really depends what you want in life. No right answers. Why ignition? I live in Australia. Google it.
Gift of the gab. I smoke a spliff and I dab. My brothers they sniffing the cab. Steam, no feelings. Drinking, I'm sicking it up. Fuck the toilet, I'm sick on the couch. Sorry if this is your house. Give me water, I water it down. Scheming. Sorry.
Kind of fun on these like boards in general, but especially like the ace wheel boards. Kind of nice to go. Kind of nice to go small. Like keep the ace X in and then bluff them on the turn. You get into an awkward one on specifically those runouts because like is ace X actually gonna like make my life kind of easy? And give her a kiss and a fang. God every day, friends of my fam. I try every day, the best I can. software is ignition card catcher from Ace Poker Solutions. Then just hold the manager through. And I tweaked my HUD a bit, it's custom. But you just need the live card catcher, then the import. Holder Manager 3 does its own one built in. I think most of them have an ignition thing now, but I find the third-party ones a little bit better.
Chris and me just watch my trainers. Stereotype we belong in cages. Watch me, not a monkey. England, the Jumanji, and we hungry. Had to cut up lunch meat cause it's costly. I'm the one that top 3 don't spur me. Violating. Watch G cause it's cocky. Every day I clock peeps going off feet on top cause I'm OT, man. I judge sheep. Call your ball peeps. I'm Bruce Lee. Walk for my man, them walk for my G's. Hey. I need a whole of a liter. I hold a note like a reefer. Shoulda done shows on Blue Peter. Skinny boy barely Habina. Fed tried to serve a subpoena, so I just chill and play FIFA. Chief Wiggum tryna pull me over. Too smart like Bart, got dough like Homer. No luck, need a 4-leaf clover. In this rap race, cat case of what over. South face people get the cold
Limp from the knit is such a weird. That's like that's the thing that I, for whatever reason, I hope I'm wrong. It seems so bottish to me. Like I just struggle to. Yeah, this is sus to me. It's like you can definitely do this as a human, and so I'm just gonna assume it is a human. I know mates have like played around with like the limp race strategy, but unless you're gonna have, okay, if it's just aces, it's good. It's either just aces, it's someone fucking around with charts, and I guess you can't really stop charts, but you would want. It makes your strategy so complicated that you would need to at least be visualizing the ranges. 3-bet me, I 4-bet you. And look at the strats looking pretty dumb. They can still flat aces. People mostly flat aces in position, especially at this SPR. It's solid strat. I'm gonna go any size to give trouble to the pocket pairs. Well, we called a 3-bet and we just hit this flop. That's pretty fucking good. They're gonna have aces a lot, it's fine. They do. We're hoping jack scores us sometimes. If they just always fold jacks, that's miserable. But we can just have ace-king that plays this way. Ace on the turn. Let's say fuck you, ace-king. Pay me all the money, please. They shove. Deal. Deal. Interesting decision, friend. What was I calling that was worse? Like, those are the sort of plays you can just dismiss offhand. Like, what am I calling that's worse? Why did you shove? I shoved for protection. I didn't know what to do with my call. It's just avoiding a decision. Bit of a... easy to find in your own stuff. I try to polarize as hard as possible. I'll wear a mullet, and then I'll like start spouting like right-wing leaning crypto allegiance. And I'll criticize religion while telling people they don't believe in God, and only the real ones will survive. But I'm lucky enough being a poker player and like not having a boss or an employer gives me the freedom to do that, right? Like otherwise you kind of had to pick a tribe. We're looking for the tribeless tribe, pathless path.
Job seekers, no more team leaders who ain't been leaders, no more swinging out fights, everybody's swinging out knives like nobody dies, but it's comeback season. I'll come back when no comeback needed. Man like Leo Joe, I'm squeezing, probably smoke more, I'm leaning. 8-year-old blowbacks breathing, nowadays cognac sipping. Back then, scrumpy sipping, Lamborghini never walk a breenie. Gotta find my A-brakes.
Yeah, 200L looks good. Ignition's back. I think they calmed down. There was so much publicity around it. I don't know where there are now. Yeah, I'm surprised. Coin poker also, again, despite like they've got no know your client, so it would be really easy for a cheater just to make a new account. But that's always the two sides of the coin are like really, really hard to ban people, really hard to enforce security. I'm sure they're, doing some stuff behind the scenes to look out for it. But it's easy for people who have millions and hundreds of thousands of grey market crypto to gamble. They're on Ignition and they're on coin poker. And so you just have to deal with some of the security downside. Yeah, just know the risks. That's always it. I would prefer, it's so much nicer just to, play 200 Zoom on Stars or something like that. It is so much nicer, but usually not as profitable. And in Australia, I don't have that privilege. It's literally impossible to get a license to run a legal poker site in Australia. There's nothing in our laws that makes it possible. They'd have to, a lot of work to do it. Just the way it's written, you can run a sports betting site, you can run online slots, you can run stake.com, but you can't run a poker site out of Australia. It's really silly. It's sort of just like a gap in our legislation. So when Black Friday happened, 6 or 7 years later, they decided to enforce it here by some obscure act on whether or not you could place bets over Telegram wire, which they took to mean the internet. But yeah. So Ignition and coin poker that don't care about the DOJ, they don't care about being a licensed operator in Europe, for example. They can operate here because they're not going to get shut down. The poker stars would never offer it to Australia because America would get mad at them. And that's pretty much the state of online poker legislation. I'm sure there's specifics for Asia and stuff. I have no idea. I definitely don't play full time these days. I've been shifting more and more to coaching. I had kind of a pretty long hiatus, but just got back from 3 months stint in the States. Played 100 hours live. Coaching's where my heart is at. I played full time / more than full time for 6-7 years. Well, 10 years, but 6 of them very profitably. Thank you, Illogical. You understand. Yeah, the spots come and go. There was one, I won 150,000 USD in 2 weeks playing on vacation in Italy, because that was just an amazing game that popped up and I ran pretty well at 6k and L on apps. I am at the point where I'm just ready to take those opportunities when they come up and play when I'm inspired. I'm excited to play a lot more this year, but I've kind of always grappled a bit with the balance of it. Because I used to just set my clock to maximizing my poker earn, and that used to be grind 6 hours of Ignition, high stakes every day. I'm hoping I can find that again. Either that or just regularly playing 25, 50, 50, 100 at the start. There's some really high stakes running. But when I went to the States and I was trying to play all-nighters and I was trying to chase that, it's not worth the lifestyle hit to me to make an extra $100 an hour. It just isn't. And yeah, I enjoy coaching more. It's more efficient as well. Just was where my heart's been at. Is just the discussing the game, the meta game, the solving the puzzle. I generally care more about that than actually playing it out. The playing is just trying to kind of prove. Same thing Magic the Gathering. I hit rank 1 arena. I was yeah. What's next? I have a compulsion to hit the ladder thing to go up because I find it validating. But once winning becomes easy, that's still the problem. You crack it, it becomes relatively easy, and then it's just about showing up and doing the routine. I'm kind of a pathologically creative person, and I'm competitive in some ways, but the idea of beating someone at a game is not inherently satisfying to me. It's about understanding and progressing, and I like the challenge, but I'd probably play poker 100 days a year, ideally, something like that. Realistically, I'm probably going to play high volume, 2-3 days. This will be coaching. break when I want to. But it always depends on game conditions. Like if they legalize it in California or they legalize it in America, I'll probably just move to America and play until that like gold rush is gone and keep coaching, you know. It's about staying in shape for like the ebb and flow, and at this point just enjoying the fruits of my labor. But I've been playing since I was like 15. Like I just dropped out of school at like, I wanted to be a Magic the Gathering pro like 15, 16, realized poker was easier, was doing whatever I could to just get any experience but not really being able to put in hands. That was hard. So I've been in this game like 12 plus years now, like putting my heart and soul into it. I'm well past the 10,000 hour mark. So as much as I'm loving it right now, some of that spark to play definitely dried up over time. Yeah, they limp called. Is Jack 10 a hand I want to bet like 3 streets with? Leaning check this time. I'm thinking about donking because I think they hit the 9 a lot. Well, we saved a bet. It's weird. I was thinking about it, but I was just like, it feels wrong. Wrong. I mean, obviously they can just have better hands, right? So, yeah, I'm not getting an answer there. Just articulating some of the like things coming up, and usually I don't actually want to overthink these, especially in the flow of the game. I explain my hands a lot more when playing than I do when streaming than I do when playing. Like, yeah, I'm really working on actually not over articulating why I'm doing decisions when playing, because it just makes you play worse when you have to stick to like these threads you're saying. Like a good player is thinking / intuiting like 100 to 1,000 times more information than when we speak to it. But if we try to think and speak manually, then we feel bound, hard not to. So way worse. I think you drop like 2 kids. Yeah, God's plan, if they have a web-based client instead of a PC-based client, they can't track your mouse movement, they can't track if you have other tabs open and stuff as well. Professional cheaters would very likely like have a camera or something, like a separate PC on their thing, or they'd have like, I mean, like look, I have a like we all own laptop. If you want some reference material, as like short of having cameras around you, there's no way someone could actually like stop you from doing that. Kind of just have to gauge like, is this guy playing fast enough and naturally enough, or does it seem like he's fucking looking up wizard outputs all the time? It's kind of tragic. But the easiest ways have been stopped, but it's just like all that happens is if you want to look up GTO wizard and see if someone cheated you on GTO wizard, you can do that. You can check if someone looked up a similar board right now. But if someone takes black market GTO wizard, I don't know what's out there, but there's a million like RTA tools they advertise on Instagram, for fuck's sake. If someone was using something like that, I really don't see how you could stop them, except for the site monitoring their play and seeing that they're at like a superhuman level. Especially if someone overnight becomes a sicko, hard to do. But I've never heard of Ignition checking anything like that. PokerStars, everyone I know who ever beat 500 Zoom, like they've been asked basically to send in hours of footage of them playing to prove that they can play at that level while under surveillance. Like, oh, you're good, huh? Great, prove it. Do it while everyone's watching. And that's something I like about streaming. Like, I mean, again, like, if I was subtle enough, I guess it would be possible to do something like that now, but the more you see someone playing at a really high level consistently, then like the more you can trust it's legit. Like people accuse Linus or whoever, like any top player, pretty much everyone gets accused of like cheating and stuff like that, but if you can just see how sick they are in all environments, it's, you know, it's more doubtful. But like, yeah, guaranteed there's hundreds of players on Ignition right now who have like a notepad document of their preferred lines that they
Out on a daily, she ain't never seen a click like we do. Stay so crazy.
Thinking about blocking here too is fine, but I think they just have like so many lower. Such a good price, and we have the queen. It's super sick though, cause like I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it, but it's. I just think we could have them beat this. Flush. I even missed the straight flush. Really shocked to see them deck that on the turn though. Also the nature of bluff catching, so you can't just pivot to like that was definitely. There's a little mindset hack. You bluff catch, you're wrong, except that you're gonna lose most of the time that's bluff catching. And then when you review, try to see like why you made the decision, and if you would do something else in hindsight, really quantify it. Are you wrong? What were you paying attention to? The process that lets you arrive at bluff catching. Because it's not a binary decision. It's about when you make 100 bluff catches, are you outperforming the competition? Yeah, then also you review winning hands, because I need my subconscious to be hyper aware that even though I'm not fucking calling third pair to 2 barrels on the ace high board there, some people are, you know? Yeah, and then speaking to the nature of the cheating, right? Like God's plan, there's the risk of it, but surprisingly few people do. Like, I don't know what it is. I think just like good players especially, right? Very few people I know, and I think they would have told me or given me information, short of like a notepad document or like something like Evernote, something that like if I can write something down on a piece of paper and reference it while we're playing, in my view, that isn't like RTA. Like that's just something we're not going to block anyone from. I kind of feel the same way about charts, but I hate the idea of telling people fucking use charts like that. But right, if someone's trying to make a living and they need to make $20 an hour to pay rent, and they're gonna like print out the charts and put them on their wall, that's what we used to do in poker, and I don't even know if it's against the TOS on most sites, right? That to me is okay. As soon as you have a live solver changing outputs, telling you post-flop stuff, in my view, that is completely wrong. If it's not something you can scribble on your hand, and if you can, and by if you can, I mean it should be scribbled on your hand. Like you shouldn't use software assistance for shit like that, unless it's explicitly allowed. For example, Ignition allows these action trackers. I don't know if you noticed, like open raise 3.5. So I don't have to remember 3.5 pre-flop, or I don't have to like piece it together from the pot size. I could do that, but this is just something that doesn't take up mental energy now, because everyone's allowed to use the one, get intuitive tables or something. Yeah, Ignition's full of bots, but we gotta eat. Gonna eat some bots. The other thing, right, like bots only fuck you up if you just try to like say you think people overfold, so you massively overbluff and you never adjust and you don't know how to start underbluffing. Like if you don't know how to play kind of balanced, if you don't know how to like take the other side of a strategy, you're gonna have a bad time against bots. But if the bots are gonna make a lot of money, they do it by being exploitative, sometimes colluding. But word on the street is we're seeing less collusion, seeing a lot less explicit, completely degenerate happening. Like when I tried to play like 18 months ago in Ignition, every other hand I was just like, how is this happening? So weird. You guys are playing so bad, but I keep losing. What the heck is going on? And there was massive high frequency collusion where they were just like putting in all the money on the river all the time. So like I lost like 5-6 grand or something for just getting like gang attacked on the river, not knowing that the bots were like rampant. I came here to visit from AOL that. before I move back here. Seems a lot tamer now, but I haven't played higher stakes. And 200L is usually that sweet spot of like, there's always fish coming in. It's like people can afford to like sustainably lose at 200. 500, it's a lot more people come and go, and it's more competitive. 500L, for whatever reason, to be the threshold of like people get really comfortable with pressure. I think it's just because it's hard to raise enough, call enough, defend enough. Hard to be a redliner, like Ella, just be way too passive. And if you can do that in an intelligent way, that automatically gives you the right to be playing like high stakes, because you can withstand that pressure. You can be putting people to the spots. Whether or not people stay there is a different thing. But 200L, usually the better players rise above it, and the fish keep coming in. Then at 500 plus, it's people who are willing to gamble large sums of money. Even the fish are likely to be whaley, more hyper aggressive if they're going to be playing a lot. They like the action, they like the swings, they want to play aggressive people. That's part of why they play higher, because it's fucking boring. Play 50L, even for amateurs. I haven't played 500L on Ignition much lately, but you'll often see a shift. It's not a rule, like especially like US pools, 500L, 200L, and same guys, and Old Infinite on the river and whatever else. I found it to be pretty consistent. Live, it would be like 20-40, like up to 10-20, a lot more passive, but then at 20-40, 20-40 plus, 25-50 plus, the good aggressive players are going to be in that game. Might not waste their time with 10. So there's this self-selecting process. Dream kind of removes itself from too rich. I don't need to sue you for playing 5-3 off under the gun, Morphe. I don't need to sue you, I'm just going to collect the chips. Thank you for your contribution to the ecosystem. I kind of want to use the standing desk, but I'm pretty sure that'll break everything. What size donk? This is kind of wild. But like they're saying they have king, queen, or better for a bluff. And they can have sets, right? They can have ace-3. Now they go half pot. If they check river, it's really interesting. Oh, we just call, fuck you. And yeah. Oh well. The pain. They could have gotten more. Could have gotten more. You pay fair price. Worth noting. ISO. It was like a big squeeze, so like an appropriate size. These are the ones where like if you don't think they're bluffing enough, or you just don't have like post flop edge, you never have to call those hands. And then at 500L, if they see you're a passive guy who never calls those hands, they'll just squeeze you more. But at low stakes, people just don't, you know, and they're not adapting to you, not playing like the same pool all day. You never have to call bottom of range. It's just like maybe nice to have. So whether you want to go, okay, it's close, I'm going to give you some money sometimes and just accept it and like learn and figure out, that's fine. You know, shimming, like pre-flop, wide range, deep, close. Or you can just go, I'm not fucking around with that. The downside of not fucking around with it is that you never like necessarily like get good at dealing with those marginal spots and showing up with the hands. But what I'm saying is that's a level, the upside of it, the purpose, it's not necessary until you are playing like stakes, high stakes. And it's generally more important to be capable and competent doing it when it makes sense than to like do it the right amount. I have to listed like 5 types of alcohol. That's really cool. So cool.
See me, I won't believe in something till I see something. People greeting me, I'm thinking, fuck 'em. Beef I eat for lunches. Female lean, I got the munchies. Used to eat Mr. Dutch's like every night. Pepper steak, pea and rice. Rice and pea got pea on nice. And some weed, cause weed tastes nice. Fat skinny, it's
I have fun with this. I think I'm gonna stream like a lot more. Like 30 streams to on like 4 tabling ignition without being able to like chat with you guys is pretty dull. Unless it's incredibly high stakes, you know. You need that. If you're not scared to lose a little bit, it doesn't sting. Be careful with leveling yourself. Cool to look that up to see, but I used to just be like, oh my god, why would you ever overbet a jack? You obviously have a jack, you must be bluffing. And if you level yourself, that's how you exploit yourself. So you actually can be too smart for your own good isn't the right word, but like I think that, yeah, that's really not the right way of viewing it. But I think there is some truth. Overthinking. You actually sometimes need to bring yourself down a level. Sometimes you need to reach up and understand what are they doing, what's changed, but a lot of the time, people are just like thinking themselves out of straightforward good plays, right? Like the ace-5 hand, oh, I have to call, or blah blah blah. Every single thing you think after have to call is bullshit. Because you don't have to call, you can do whatever the hell you want. I get. Atsu. There's a uni, as in like. Oh, Emi combo, foie gras and unagi fried rice seems. Wide formation, ace king. Ooh, baby. Who's now flips? Names. Actually, no, I'm gonna go for the Agidon. The mullet where I am. I never got to play on global. Seems like it's another one of those sites that's like kind of bullshit to play on, so it's like pretty good when it's good. Like ebbs and flows. It used to be the best place to play, but like word gets out, it cycles around. Fish dry up, more regs come in. It's always an ebb and flow every site. Yeah, I'm not plugged into it right now. Can't play it here. I know a lot of people who made a lot of money there. Ways back. Yeah. Game's drying up a bit. Feel my brain drying up a bit. Tends to happen around the 2-hour mark of constant yapping, so wrap the session before I start torching. And yeah, made $100 in EV. Lost a little bit because we lost some flips. Pretty standard for like a hour and a half session. Yeah, 200L looks good. 200L's usually good on most sites. It was good on stars when I was playing. Like people always say like Euro pools are so tough. Like, oh, bro. It's all like fish ratio. Rake. High rake, more fish. Low rake, maybe you need to be a bit more solid against regs. It's worth studying them more than we. Like, that is a big debate. You should spend more time studying regs at relatively low stakes if you're like stuck entirely in Euro pools. But you need to be really open to exploiting the fish. If you're in America, you only need to know how to beat like weak unstudied regs and fish until you're at high stakes, essentially. And speaking of, if you want to do that, if you want to speed run your way to $100 plus an hour, 2040 plus at casinos, mid stakes online, reopening mentorship and coaching, yeah, real soon. Send me a DM. I will try to tell you why you shouldn't do it, and if you can convince me otherwise, talk about working together. I've helped dozens of players do the same. Overwhelmingly successful. Put some graphs and shit. Hey. Great. Got plans tomorrow. Yeah, I'll probably be streaming again next week. With or without notice. I might alternate one tabling that while I other miscellaneous internet activity. Make myself. Guys, great chat. Thanks for showing.